David Baker.
Here.
Ken Charneski.
Here.
Aaron Mishka.
Here.
Craig Mortensen.
Here.
Sandy Sorensen. Dan Joling.
Present.
Jessica Stoll. Here.
My name is Bertie Kramer, 2150 East State Highway 153, Petla. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your win and all the other trustees up there. And it's good to see a full house. But I want to just touch a little bit on this option that I saw as an option of short-term borrowing. I am totally against this short-term borrowing. I mean, here we get from Weston, 40% of our revenue comes from Weston, $1,800,000, and we provide hardly no services at all, sewer, water, and we don't have to worry about roads or anything else. But I mean, that's a good chunk of change, $1,800,000 to 40% of our revenue. And then we have to run to the bank and short-term borrow because of our mistakes. And for myself, I look at that as failure. And then I look at some of our failures. We paid out $1 million here, judging we finished here a little over a year ago in the fall over that Kid 2 lawsuit. Then we came down last year in January with that financing for that fire truck situation, but in the meantime, with all that paperwork, we lost $90,000 because we never levied, right? It's gone. So then we come to this year, and we got to have $90,000 again for the credit union, but we only levied $110,000. So if we paid $90 there, we only got $20,000 left for our general obligation bonds. And if you look at the audit, it spells it out in there exactly what the payment would be, over $100,000, just to satisfy that. And the other thing I'd like to touch on it, if you're going to squeeze out of the 25 budget cost reductions, I think everybody should know about it. I mean, staff, employees, I mean, there's always places to cut. And I mean, we got ourselves into this, and Ellers was in there too. I mean, I remember Lisa wired to Ellers. I've got copies of that right here, and everything is fine. You get spreadsheets and all rationale, and it's hard to believe. We got their blessings, but the fact of it is that going through all this, it seems like we gotta put some kind of an urgency on some cost reductions, which we have a hard time doing in Kronenwetter for some reason. And the other thing is, it seems as though that we got a virus here. I don't know where it comes from, but anyhow. And another thing is, you know, we don't have the growth here again. And it was brought up before, no population increase according to the stats in 23. But anyhow, thanks again and good luck.
Thank you, Bernie. We have a comment, further question.
Kelly Coyle, 641 River Oaks Trail, Kronenwetter, Wisconsin, 54455. Mr. President, it appears that proper posting requirements for tonight's meeting were not met. While the agenda was posted 72 hours prior to the meeting, the packet materials were not published until earlier today, thus violating the 24-hour minimum requirement that such materials be given. While there is a good cause exception to this rule, that only applies to items of emergent nature. Forgetting to notice or negligence is not a good cause, Wisconsin Statute 1984. Given the late hour of the packet materials being published, it stands to reason to question whether action can be taken on any of the agenda items at tonight's meeting. Furthermore, agenda items in section 3, items D, E, F, and G must be sent to APC prior to any village board consideration and action per village ordinance 1420 paragraph G. I have attached a copy for reference. Being in a hurry to make changes is not a suitable reason to openly violate Wisconsin open meeting laws and Kronenwetter village ordinances. Learn from this and do better going forward.
So for that one, I'm going to comment. First off, there is no 24-hour minimum rule for a packet. That's for the agenda. We posted 72 hours prior, so it is often the case where packet material is actually handed out at the meeting, and so that is not correct and not applicable. The other section. The other section where about APC, and I will read the, or do you want to read from me? Just this little section.
Except as deemed necessary by majority vote of therefore it is determined that the performance of these itemized duties shall not in any way be obstructed, curtailed, or bypassed by anyone either directly or by omission, except as deemed necessary by majority vote of the village board. This committee's duties shall be liberally construed to include review, research, and recommendations regarding the following: personnel policies. Do you want me to read all of
That's
them?
good.
Oh.
So basically, according to our ordinance, we need to take a vote of the board and a majority vote to proceed after item C. So there's no action on item C, so we'll proceed with that without. So, new business C, removal of interim administrator title from village president. So previously, the previous president, because we did not have an administrator, the village board took a vote to make the village president both the president and administrator. And often our motions are not completely clear, so when I went back and read that, I think it was fairly clear that it only applied to President Bowl and not to future presidents. But just to clarify, I just want to basically make it clear that I am not acting as the administrator. I'm not the interim administrator, and I don't intend to be the interim or acting administrator. However, I am going to approach some of the same things in a little different manner. So this is just informational, just to get it on the record that I'm not acting as interim or acting administrator. Okay, so we are now to D, and before we address D, I want to just comment on Robert's rules, just try to get the, we'll talk about this more in the future, but we're basically one trustee at a time has the floor, and if you don't have the floor, then you should not be talking. And Jennifer is going to help me with this, so if one trustee is talking and you want to respond or make another comment, get Jennifer's attention, and she'll write your name down so that she'll keep track of the order, and then she'll tell me who's up next. Any questions about that or any concerns? Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I do have a question. So, in the case that someone were to interrupt another person, is there any ramifications for that? So then if there's 3 knocks of the gavel, you're in the corner? Or, I'm just trying to understand like what the consequences are, because we have all been at the board meetings before and we've seen that type of interaction. I don't know if that type of interaction will stop.
Well, I mean, if we all agree that it will stop, then,
That it should stop.
then it should stop. If it doesn't, then I guess we'll need a discussion.
Okay, I know that sometimes tempers can get flared, so I'm just asking.
No, it's a valid question. So, I don't think by state statute you can have you take it out or anything. It's not allowed. Anybody but us 7, but so hopefully I'm just joking. Okay, so before we go to D, can I have someone make a motion to proceed with the bypassing of ACC for this evening's discussion of DC?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that according to the ordinance, I believe it's 1420G, that the board takes action to bypass the prohibition in 1420G.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
We take a roll.
Okay, take a roll call.
Dave Baker,
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka,
Yes.
Craig Mortensen,
Yes.
Sandy Sorensen,
Yes.
Dan Jolie,
Yes.
Jessica Stoll.
Yes.
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 It passed 7-0 unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so D is assignment of functions and duties of administrator during absence of administrator. So the village has been unable to develop a successful lasting relationship with the village administrator for the last several years. And in addition to that, discovery of the large errors in the 24-25 budget, which is item G, creates budget difficulties which could be partially alleviated by leaving the administrator position open. And we want to acknowledge that a decision to leave that administrator position vacant would be expected to impact the village's ability to meet its goals and objectives moving forward. So it's not a desirable thing. I met with staff and they expressed the desire to have an administrator, but also that perhaps it would be okay to continue this year. So like for maybe 6 months to, that it would take us that long. We do have some applicants actually, so we can go forward with some discussion on whether we want to do that or not. It's still independent. We don't have an administrator right now, so we need to take some steps to take care of some of the duties of the administrator. So I provided a handout. It's modified from the one that was in the packet, and there were some extra copies for the audience if they. So on that handout, I marked in yellow changes that were made mostly based on discussions with staff. So if you have questions about the yellow, or if I can get a motion for that, and then we can discuss that after we get a motion. I have a recommended motion at the top.
I'll move that we approve making the village president responsible for these duties as listed in ordinance 115-11 as they are marked on this document.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Well, may I speak?
Yes.
Okay, I like this.
Ken is, just for reference, Ken is in favor of the new format where we have the one.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Sorry, I violated the rules already.
Good.
I think this is good the way you have it laid out, and the division of some of these duties. I think if we run into any issues later on of something that's not covered, we'll deal with it at that time. I don't know if we should maybe add something. There's certain duties for an administrator, like in the handbook, like conflict resolution or something. If we would just want to put a blanket statement at the end here to fulfill the duties assigned to an administrator in the handbook or in the various policies that we have, just to cover everything, or unless we don't want to be that broad, in our statement.
So I would prefer, if we want to add things, to have specific, if we want to add things in the future, I'd like to come back and modify it to specifically say, so it's not, so it's more precise. That'd be okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Could we look at this a couple of weeks till our board meeting at the end of the month? In case there's anything we want to look, any of these items we may want to modify in here?
Can we, Pat, are you okay with passing it tonight and then revisiting it in 2 weeks?
Well, I guess, what's easier?
Well,
Table it for now and
if we table it and there are certain issues that come up,
yes.
we don't have anybody that's.
okay. Thank you.
But I'm certainly open to bringing it back and, you know, and either if there's staff suggestions or board suggestions, I'd be, you know, fine with bringing it back and modifying it. And we may want to put it in a different format, you know, I mean, it's kind of a short-term thing right now just to keep this going in the transition. Since President Bull was acting in that role and now there is nobody acting in that role, so that's kind of why the urgency, I guess, of doing something so we're covered and.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, some of us got involved with a little bit of stuff like I did, got involved a little bit with the liaison with some of the staff and that, doing some of those duties, but getting it spelled out here, I guess, will give us something to start with a key anyway.
Aaron?
I am in favor of tabling this for a later date. And make it clear, it is important that we do fill the role permanently, and this would just be a short-term temporary thing, because we do need a permanent village administrator. So I'd be in favor of reviewing this, because I just got this today. So.
Do you want to get it to you or?
I'd like to review it more.
Okay.
And I think I did study this over that long myself. I guess the other thing, if something comes up in 2 weeks and we need somebody to make a decision, I guess, and you'd like to be able to pass that along. I guess we could amend it in 2 weeks, but
I'm open to that, to making it, you know, if you want to make it valid for 2 weeks and we bring it back up and discuss it again,
that'd give us some time to look it over a little bit and see if we want to add anything to some of those items.
so we'll vote on it based on it's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm that's done. Trustee Chernins.
Well, I'll amend my, can I amend my motion to put the 2 week limit on it? Okay, so I amend it that way.
I'll second it.
I think the same person who seconded it first.
I'm not sure who seconded it.
I did, and I agree. I think that would be a good solution.
So we'll put it on the agenda for the 28th.
Sounds good.
Is that okay?
Yeah, oh, excuse me, I was just gonna make a comment that would go, but seeing all the motions on the floor, let's let it stand, but I guess I look back at the employees and they're the ones that, you know, there may in 2 weeks come something up that right now they have no direction to go to, so, but 2 weeks, keep the ship afloat for 2 weeks.
Well, this will be in effect for the 2 weeks in between. It's just that we may want to adopt, amend those at the next meeting.
So we're good. Yeah, so for clarification, if I understand the motion right, we're going to vote on adopting it for 2 weeks. But then in 2 weeks,
Okay.
we're going to vote again to whether we want to keep it or if we want to go some other way. So that gives us time to discuss, and we've got a way to cover if something comes up, you know. Okay. So, any other discussion? Okay, we'll take the roll call.
David Baker,
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka,
Yes.
Craig Mortensen,
Yes.
Sandy Sorensen,
Yes,
Dan Joling,
Yes.
Jessica Stoll.
Yes.
Passed 7-0, thank you. Okay, the next item is an RFP for village attorney services. And I attached a recent RFP, but that is just kind of a sample. It's not necessarily that's what we use. So it's my judgment that village would be well served by finding a new attorney to provide attorney services to the village. The chemistry between the village president and the village attorney is important to a successful working relationship. It's not the goal of this agenda item to attribute blame to current or previous board members, village staff, or current village attorney. Discussion of the detailed reasons leading to the request for approval of this RFP is not considered appropriate for open session. So I'm basically asking to be given authorization to work with staff to prepare and issue an RFP for village attorney services, and also to authorize myself to contact potential village attorneys to encourage response to the RFP, because of the last time that we have done this, we got very few responses, one I think. And if the board wants to discuss this prior to adopting it, we would probably need to bring it back and go close. I mean, if you want to discuss the particulars of why I'm asking to go to a different attorney, then we probably want to do that in closed session. But I think it's probably, well, may or may not be well known. So I guess that's up to the board. So we need a motion and a second, and then we can discuss.
I make a motion that we accept and give you the authorization to do an RFP.
And to contact attorneys.
Yes.
Thank you. Give a second.
I'll second it.
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I guess you mentioned that this would be rewritten. From my point of view, I think I would want to impress on them that we have a new board, new leadership, and we're looking for somebody to help us go in a new direction, something like that, to get away as much as we can from the, reputation or whatever. So and now once this RFP is done, do you plan on sending it to APC or just moving ahead with it?
I'd be fine with either way, if the board has some, input. If the board would like to suggest one way or the other, I think it'd probably be good to go to APC with it.
If your timeline, allows for that, yeah. I guess
That would be the question is, we have I don't want to drag it out too much, but if the board feels like we should go to APC, I have no objections to that.
Now that goes to the following thing. If we do have another attorney on hand that you can consult, that gives us more time,
Correct.
So, okay. I'm done.
Any other discussion?
And I apologize, I guess I don't know what the chemistry is between you and the village attorney. So I guess I would need further explanation on that. So I apologize that I don't know.
That's understandable.
And if that's a second meeting, that's a second meeting.
Well, so if we run it through APC, we could give authorization to go ahead and start on developing it, and then have a closed session to discuss that before we send the RFP out.
Okay.
Although the next agenda item impacts that as well. But so you want to amend the motion to, or we'll just agree that it's going to go to APC? I don't know if we have to.
I think we just read it.
Amend it to say that, okay. So the motion is amended to should be amended. And I won't contact any other potential attorneys with us until we do that. Right. Any other discussion?
I have one question. Do we still have separate attorneys for prosecution of our ordinances?
Yes.
First one.
And this is not, I'm not addressing that at this point unless the board directs them to.
Just the one that represents the village.
I guess I would include that option in the RFPs, in the request for RFP though, because I wouldn't want to lose a potential firm if they would like to do both of them. I mean, kind of give them the option which either the village attorney or village and prosecutor. But if we're happy with our prosecutor, I guess we don't really want somebody to just want to be the prosecutor. You know what I'm saying? So I guess that, we can talk about that later. Once you have some kind of draft of the RFP, we can fine tune
Any other comments?
I was just gonna say that the non-routine legal services, they have the routine specified with non-routine, which basically covers both those positions, so.
If there's no further discussion, we'll take a vote on authorizing myself and staff to start working on RFP that will then go to ABC. Roll call.
David Baker,
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka,
Yes.
Craig Mortensen,
Yes.
Sandy Sorensen,
Yes,
Dan Joling,
Yes.
Jessica Stoll.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, 7-1. Okay, so now the next item is related. And I apologize to Jessica because I'm not sure how I'm going to handle your objections for the last one and this one. So it's anticipated that it'll take a period of time to successfully find a new village attorney through the RFP process. We added a little bit of time, or maybe we added some time because we're going to go through APC, which I'm in support of. And it is anticipated that we will need attorney services prior to the successful conclusion of the RFP process. And Vanderwall Law has verbally agreed to provide attorney services to be okay, and now they have actually sent me the agreement, which I have not had the chance to read yet, but we do have an agreement for our review and acceptance. And they are willing to provide us attorney services in the short term, and we have not defined what the short term is. So that will give us time to find a new village attorney. And their existing workload does not permit them to provide us with attorney services on a long-term basis. They're too busy to take us on full-time for long-term, but they're willing to put in those extra hours for the short term to help us out. And so I am requesting that the board authorize us to execute that short-term contract. And I do realize that that is a little awkward for Jessica, or a little difficult to make the decision. Vanderwall is very well respected. They represent many municipalities in our area, I think 6 maybe or more. And they, they've agreed to help us out basically. And I really think it would be good for the village to accept that offer of help. So.
Did you get a rough idea what their hourly rate is?
Shane is $280 and his associates are $250. And that's their standard municipal rate. So that's what everybody else, Rothschild uses them, Village of Maine uses them, so it's their standard rate for municipalities.
I think there's 280.
Pardon?
$280.
280 for Shane and 250 for his associates. Any discussion? Oh, first make a motion and then we have discussion.
Currently the village attorney.
We need a motion. We're supposed to actually have a motion before we have discussion here as opposed to the way it is. So I think that's my understanding of Robert's rules.
You might have to push it, to accept the clock, to have that 10-minute limits, you should need a motion. You can still talk before there's a motion.
Okay. I will accept that and then check and see. Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say that Lee Troy from Dempsey Law Firm has been the village attorney. Is he still the village attorney?
He is right now because we haven't made any decision to do anything else.
Okay. And I do know that his rate is $200 per hour, which is cheaper than the rates that of these other people, law firm that you proposed. I do agree with you, Dave, that it's important to have chemistry between the president and the law firm. I would like to keep Dempsey Law Firm, Lee Teroni, until the RFP comes back, because it would save us money because it is a cheaper rate than this other group.
Any other discussion?
No.
I agree with that too.
Agree with Mark.
Retaining them till the time that they get their.
Well, he's still under contract,
Right, we have a canceled contract.
but if we have Shane or any other lawyer, it might be good to see what kind of information they give us for $280 an hour and see if that isn't worth more, have more value than the other information we're getting at 200. That's what, seems to me that's part of what we've been running into, is a low rate, but a lot of hours. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think a lot of it, we couldn't get anybody. That was all we could get.
Yeah, that's part of it. But as far as for this motion, I would move that we approve this short-term agreement with Vanderwall Law Firm here, just so we have the option that, the way I understand it, there's no obligation. It's just that if something comes up that we need a good opinion, we have them ready for it. It's not like we're going to be calling them every day or something, right?
Don't intend to, no.
Right.
Well, do we have to terminate our contract then with the other firm?
That would be my intent.
Well, even eventually, but not
Well, I'm thinking
immediately.
there might, I don't know if there's any crossover there on their contract. I mean, I guess you would have to look at the contract.
I did look at it a couple months ago. I don't remember seeing anything that says you can't have another. For instance, we got Wolfram doing processing,
Right.
you know. So I don't know if there is a conflict. I mean, it's up to us if we want to have two separate attorneys temporarily.
If there's anything in the contract, yeah, we don't want to have them coming after us.
Right.
Well, he had said during one meeting that, you know, we could terminate him at any time and he'd be quit at any time.
Yeah,
They did say that.
that is in there, yeah.
Excuse me, I do have a side question. Well, Dempsey is 200, and then Vanderwall would be 280, but then you also talked about an associate at 250. Is that associate doing any type of paperwork for the lawyer who's sitting here at 280, and then they're billing for an hour of paperwork? So really, would it be over 500?
That's not my understanding. Those two are attorneys.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they weren't
It's
hand
just
in
like
hand.
That's all right, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's your rule. No, like I said, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something, like I said, they're working hand in hand, then you get two bills, right? One for the 280 and one for the 250.
I don't believe that is the case.
No, customary, I would see that we would get like a monthly bill that would have the different rates on there for who worked how many hours for each person. I mean, there could be even a clerical person that does some other stuff too, who knows on there. But it would be all itemized out with the hourly billing rate and the number of hours for that individual on a monthly bill.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Do we have a motion?
No.
Okay, well, I'll move that we approve this temporary agreement with Vanderwall Law Firm.
Wait a second.
Sounds familiar, like I just did that.
I second it.
Did you ever do it?
Yeah.
I thought so too. Yeah. Okay. So we're striking the second motion,
Okay.
voting on the first motion, which it was the same, right? They were
It's the
identical.
same.
Okay. Okay, so now we have a motion. Do we have any discussion on the motion? I think we had a discussion, but I mean, if you want to have additional discussion, where?
So basically, we have two firms if we need it right now.
I will review both contracts, and if there's an issue, I'll bring it back at the next one.
That's
Okay, so we have a roll call vote. There's no further discussion.
David Baker,
Yes.
Ken Charneski.
Yes.
Aaron Mishka,
No,
Craig Mortensen,
yes.
Sandy Sorensen,
Yes.
Dan Joling,
Yes.
Jessica Stoll,
No,
So the motion passed 5-2. Non-unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item G is Budget Amendment 3, adjustment to 25-25 debt service fund budget and other fund budgets. So this came before the board on Monday, before the whole board. And they passed some amendments that were recommended by our finance director. And those, just for clarification, that budget amendment that passed did not include short-term borrowing that was addressed in the public comment. So that is not being considered by the village at this point in time. Or any, I want to say, that's not being considered by the village, as far as I know at all. But I wasn't sure, I had to kind of plan the meeting before I knew what the decisions were going to be on Monday. There was a very short time frame, and the auditors are coming next week, and our finance director wanted to have a firm decision made before that happened because it can impact the budget. Impact the audit, I'm sorry. So I put it on the agenda, but since that time, John and I have talked, and he would like us not to make any modifications at this point until we get firm data or better data, like at the end of May, and I'm completely comfortable with that. So I'm not recommending any action on this item, but it is on the agenda for action. So if someone wants to do that, I probably won't be supporting that, but that is an option if someone wants to make a motion to make it a budget amendment 3. So the plan is basically, we'll give John time to get 24, some good numbers on 2024, and I'm saying a quarter, the first quarter, and you had said April, but get the first quarter done by the end of May, and then we'll revisit this and make a decision. We have a much higher level of confidence in our data. But I do want to give the option for John to talk about it and for you to ask questions of him, because it is a big issue that's facing us, and I think I would be accurate to characterize it as you think that is not quite as drastic of an impact as you first thought. Would that be a fair?
I'm all over the place with it.
Okay.
I mean, I'm very blunt, I'm very open and transparent with everything that I do and have been in my career. The reason for the urgency for the meeting on Monday night was because of the tax law, was the debt service law. When we had debt service payments that we were paying on March 31st and April 1st, that put crisis, the red flag went up, all the alarms and bells in my head went off, and I was like, oh dear, we got a problem here. Houston, we have a problem. So I went ahead and then I talked with President Vole at the time, just said, we're signing off on these and approving all this, but I'm like, there's not money in the budget, the debt service fund. And there hadn't been levied for 2 consecutive years. So we came up, we looked at, how do we get around for 24 audit, what do we do for 25? The main thing was that 24 is not really an issue. There's the balance, the cash balance in the debt service fund is roughly about $60,000. ballpark, going into 2025. So, okay, that crisis averted for 24 audit. What does impact the 24 audit is that when we set the tax levy, we're collecting dollars in December 2024 for 1 month. And I have to have a home for those on my audit. Is it split between 4 funds? I mean, we collect roughly like about 30% of the property taxes. That's the village's share. I mean, we collect all school district and county and everything too, but we have to record our share in a fund. And what fund do I put that in? Do I put that in 2 funds, 4 funds, whatever? So that's the decision that needed to be made. Where does the tax levy lie for the 25 budget? It does impact where you drop the bucket of money that you collect during the month of December. So with my presentation last Monday night, we made the determination at this point, let's move the monies around so that the tax levy is sitting in 2 funds, in general fund and in debt service fund. It will come back and relook, and I did promise President Baker, and we've been talking 4 hours yesterday, and there's emails back and forth before that, so there was a lot of discussion. So this was not done in a 1 hour meeting, this was over multiple days. So I promised that we'll come back and relook at that for the capital project funds, but that was what I needed to know is where does December cash for property taxes lie? Because it's got to be recorded, the cash's got to be spread somehow, some way, and it's dependent why where it sits for 2025 budget is approved, and so then it can drop those buckets of money that we collect in taxes in December for the 24 audit, which makes sense. So that's what was needed. Now you still can make adjustments for 2025 budget all year long. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that. However, when we were looking at the estimate numbers that were presented in the PowerPoint presentation that was presented, I mean, I went through budget workshops in end of October with meetings and with the board, with the village board and with the department heads. And then in November, there must have been revisions between those meetings in October and what was presented in the budget PowerPoint presentation. What happened there is some of those slides never got changed. So when President Baker was looking at a set of numbers and I was looking at a set of numbers, we were not looking at the same thing because some things never got changed. Not anybody's fault of anybody that's working here right now, but it was done with previous staff. So I pointed that out to him so that we had the same understanding what his beginning target was. And I said, I'm not sure even with the estimates that were put in there at the end of, when they did the budget, they estimated numbers year-end 24 based on what they knew for September. Now I know there, and I pointed out to President Baker yesterday, there are a couple of areas that did overrun those estimates from September. So my confidence level is not very high with what my predecessor had done. And partly it's because things happen in 3 months. I wasn't here until end of January this year. So I don't have a comfort level to really answer and respond to any changes that would be made. Let's get 24 audit done. Let's get those numbers done. The auditors will be here through next week. We should have some final numbers in any adjustments that need to be made here by early May so that we can come back with whatever kind of proposal that wants to be presented and have and discuss it at that time. But I think it's a little premature because I wasn't here. I didn't have control of the pack and not putting the budget together, but I mean the organization of it and the way it was presented and maybe not discussed because your finance director wasn't here. And Ellers, they didn't change a number. They didn't change any of the slides. They didn't go and proof any of the slides from what was done in October versus November. So I don't put the blame there with them. They merely were sitting in as a financial advisor to the village board to get that budget presented, and then the board could do whatever they wanted with it. So they didn't make changes, they didn't put anything together, they didn't change slides, they took what was handed off to them when my predecessor left. So I don't put blame there either at this point. All I want is, let's get through the audit here next week, and then look at clean numbers that we know are for sure locked in, and that'll give me a time to go through even some of the first couple months of this year. And then we can have a discussion. That's all I'm asking at this point. So, thank you. I'm willing to answer any questions you might have at this point.
Now looking at page 26 of the packet, it lists budget amendment, got numbers. And looking at it, it comes up to like 490,000. Now, don't we need 700 or 800,000?
We have moved monies around for the debt service fund, money available to pay debt, which was over $770-some thousand for 25, which was non-TIF debt, not utility debt. We went ahead and moved monies around so that we took some savings from the Public Works Department of the general fund. We took a transfer to TID number 1, which does not have to be done that way, and I confirmed that with Elders. That wasn't being done. And then I took a little bit out of the treasurer's budget because I know I don't have fringe benefits on me. So it's like, why, that's not necessary to be there. Throw that into debt service. Pick up that money out of general fund, move to debt service fund. Then the only other areas we looked at transferring money out of capital projects and out of the capital equipment replacement fund and move that over into debt service to try to get that number from 110 that was levied up to closer to over 600,000.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, is that reflected in these numbers, in this?
What I presented on Monday night was reflected and was handed out to the board, and that was approved on.
Okay, so is
we
that
have-
the same as what's on page
we have,
26?
I didn't prepare the memo here, but what I'm saying is that we have funded right now the debt service for 2025 with the changes that were made on Monday night. Both by moving money from the general fund areas of the budget, moving it from capital projects, capital equipment fund, and then taking $57,000 out of the borrowed monies from the 2024 note issue, which we took out last November. And the only way we can do that is the interest portion of the non-TIF debt. We can go ahead and take that out of it, not for principal payment for 25, but it's the interest only, which is $57,000. So it was a whole bunch of things.
Right, I understand what you're saying. Can we get just a 1-page or a half-page summary of each of those money movements? Because I know we talked a lot about it Monday.
Yes, I can have that
and
for
we're
the
all
board
over the
meeting
place.
on the 28th.
28th,
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right.
Because Jennifer and I have to post something within 15 days on the website, and right now there's a lot of things there, but is it really nicely lined out with account numbers and things? No, but the thing is, all of the detail was there. Everything that was highlighted in yellow, yes, I can have that, because Jennifer and I have to post that within 15 days of the 14th. So that, since we're getting it ready for the website, it's going to be ready for the board meeting on the 28th.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
I got a question, John. The capital projects fund, even though we took that 200,000 out, and it does have a positive balance by year's end, right? We don't need any
Yes.
short-term bond to cover, right?
Correct. I mean, if I remember right, it's like over $800,000. You have got over $400,000 that's still sitting in there from monies that have been in there for a period of time. And then you also have 412,000 left over from the unborrowed portion that we haven't designated for any project at this point yet. So yeah, there's going to be well over like $800,000 in there at year in 2025 right now, as it stands, without moving another 200,000 in there. Yes.
Any other questions? And just to be clear, so in case, make sure I didn't confuse everybody, we are not making any changes from what you did on Monday. I mean, the changes that you made on Monday are what first. There's not going to be a budget amendment 3 at this point in time. It's just a budget amendment 2 that you voted on.
Did you want a motion for no action, Dave? Or?
No, I think we, sure, I guess that'd be fair.
I move to take no action.
I'll second it.
Yeah. Just, you don't need a roll call for that. Okay, everyone who's in favor say aye, I'll take no action.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Okay, so we're to item 4, consideration of items for future agenda. Anybody that wants to bring up any items for future agenda?
Oh, we have John stuff.
Pardon?
We'll have John stuff for the next agenda.
Oh, well, I thought you.
I guess there's no vacation for Easter, huh?
So our next meeting is our organizational meeting, so we, we'll be talking about, a number of different things. Well, and I commit to getting the agenda and packet out much quicker. I mean, this was kind of I want to say this was a one-off kind of where, we went, because of the auditor coming, and it was just really short notice. I apologize for that, and for making you come in, when you weren't planning to. So I really appreciate that you all came and could make it, and thank you for that. So I guess we're to number 5. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I move we adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.